and welcome to Leadership Trailblazers. Jumping straight in today, is Andy Burnham the right person to lead the country? Is he the right person for the job? Andy Burnham is widely expected to become Prime Minister in the next couple of weeks. Indeed, by the time this episode airs, he probably will already be Prime Minister. Before we go any further, this is not going to be about his politics. This is not a political episode. What I'm really interested in is the leadership challenge that Andy Burnham is facing. And I think it's a similar leadership challenge that many other leaders experience when they go into a significantly bigger role. Because the fundamentals and the dynamics are the same. Whether you're going in to be PM, whether you're going to be a CEO or a director, or the chair of a board, a head of department, or a team leader. If you get it right in the early days, you are well on the way to success. Get it wrong, and you can take a couple of years, maybe more, recovering or not recovering, as the case may be. So, it's a big topic, and we're going to look at it in this way today. So we're going to look at the specific challenge facing Andy Burnham. We're going to look at the pitfalls that he needs to avoid. And I'm going to give 3 practical tips that might help Andy. Who knows if he's listening, and will help other leaders going into significantly bigger roles. I'm Lois Burton. This is Leadership Trailblazers. I'm an executive coach and senior leadership team coach with 26 years experience in this field. So, first of all, what are we going to look at today? We're going to look at the specific challenge. As I said, we're going to look at the pitfalls, and we're going to look at 3 tips. And those 3 tips are: listen before you broadcast, address the trust gap directly, and build a whole team, not just an inner circle. And I'll say more about those towards the end of the episode. So let's start with that specific challenge. What is the specific challenge that Andy Burnham as a leader is walking into? First of all, he's not walking into a neutral situation. And this will be something that a lot of other leaders recognise. He's walking into a situation where the trust is fractured. It fractured around his predecessor. There were over 100 MPs calling for Keir Starmer to resign. And that's not just a small disagreement. That really is fractured trust. So it's not neutral, and he's going to have to address that trust directly. Also, he's coming from a context where he had time to build. In Manchester, he had a reputation, he had good social capital, he had relationships. He's walking into a situation now because number 10 is a completely different beast, and all of that is not going to automatically transfer. So this is the specific challenge facing Andy Burnham, and people are going to be watching him really closely in the early days. His team are going to be watching him. The parliamentary party are going to be watching him, and how he leads is going to be so important at this point, and it's really significant that he recognises that, and really significant that other leaders recognise that if you're walking into a significantly bigger role, particularly around that transfer of context. I've talked to many people about this, and it's the bit they often find most difficult. In a previous role, in a previous organisation, they had a reputation, they had relationships, and they had social capital. And when that doesn't automatically transfer and they have to rebuild, it's often something that really wobbles people. So, going on from that, what are the pitfalls that Andy Burnham's going to experience and that other leaders would also experience? First one is too many answers too quickly. It sounds impressive, and many people feel the pressure to give those answers quickly, and Burnham will feel that pressure immensely. But actually, the signal it sends is, I'm not listening. I've made my mind up already, so I'm not open to other people's views. And that is going to really trip him up and can really trip you up if you're not careful. Pitfall number 2, only bringing in allies. If you only bring in people who support you, people who agree with you, then you are acting on incomplete information and you become too inward looking. It's going to be a massive temptation for Burnham. Don't bring in the challengers, bring in the supporters, bring in people who can actually give me that encouragement and can help me. Big mistake, big mistake. Thirdly, underestimating the transition period. Every leader has a transition period when they go into a new role. It doesn't just happen immediately. And this is going to be particularly true for Burnham. It links to the first point. He's going to be under immense pressure to make decisions quickly and state those decisions publicly. Good decisions made slightly more slowly are always less dangerous than decisions made with incomplete information under the pressure to make a quick decision. If he's not careful, those quick decisions could become yawning chasms to trip him up. So he needs to remember that the pitfalls will be too many answers too quickly, only listening to your allies, and making bad decisions too quickly. So how can we help him with this? What are the tips that can help him? So the first one is listen before you broadcast, which links to that giving too many answers too quickly. Your job at this point is to listen, to understand, because you will almost never have the level of understanding that you need. Almost never. When I talk to leaders who are going into new roles, it sounds a bit of a cliche, but I always talk about those first 100 days. Try not to do anything too big, too quickly. Make sure that people see that you're listening, that you're taking into account their understanding, because they understand more about the current situation than you do. And that is particularly true for Andy Burnham. He needs to do the listening. And he needs to, within his cabinet, have genuine exploratory conversations. And he needs to ask the Parliamentary Labour Party what they need from him as a leader, not just as a politician. Remember, people who feel heard are people who become willing to follow. The second tip is to address the trust gap directly. This is really important. It doesn't need drama, no big dramatic apology, but an honest acknowledgement of what went wrong. And if he's done what we talked about in the first tip, if he's asked people what they need, then he'll have some good information on which he can build and where he can commit to some specific behaviours to change that. And so if people see that and they hear it, then actually they will feel heard and seen. And often when leaders do this, their teams respond with a generosity that surprises them because it feels real. It feels like they care. If you acknowledge this openly and honestly, what you're going to give is evidence to people of the fact that you really want to rebuild that trust, because people want to trust their leader. They really do. And if you give them that evidence, honestly, openly, and consistently, then it will start to shift. But ignoring it actually hardens into something that is much more difficult to shift. Third tip, build the whole team, not just a narrow inner circle. This relates back to that pitfall about allies. In a new leadership team, there are always three groups: enthusiasts, neutrals, and skeptics. The temptation is to invest only in the enthusiasts and just manage the rest and keep them at a bit of a distance. It is a real temptation. But actually, the strategic importance of investing in all three can't be underestimated. Because if you do invest in all three, then what you do is you bring more people into your tent, and you're getting better feedback and you're getting better information. I am going to just say a word on the skeptics, because there are some skeptics that you will never win over. You would never be able to bring them in. And you can't invest all your energy in those people, because it wouldn't matter what you offered them. But there are others who, if they feel you're genuine, if you're doing what we talked about earlier, they'll actually want to come into the tent. And they can be really powerful people within your tent. A, they send a great signal out to others, but B, they can give you information about things that your supporters won't know. And they spot risks that your supporters may not spot or could minimise. So they can be really important people for you. So remember that you are not just building a narrow inner circle. You are actually aiming to build a whole team. So for Burnham, this means in his cabinet, he needs challengers as well as supporters. And if he's prepared to do that, then he's going to get a very powerful group of people and better information. Okay, so in closing, today We've looked at the specific challenge facing Andy Burnham and taken lessons from that for other leaders stepping into bigger roles. Because the leadership fundamentals remain the same. Whether you're PM, whether you're a CEO, director, head of department or a team leader, they remain the same. So we've looked at the pitfalls and how to avoid them and those 3 tips that can help. Listen before you broadcast, address the trust gap directly, and build a whole team, not just the inner circle. It's going to be really interesting. Watch how he leads in the early days. I'd love to know your thoughts. How do you think he's going to get on? I'm going to start a conversation on this in LinkedIn, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for being here. This is Leadership Trailblazers. We're going to keep this conversation going. Do come and find me either on LinkedIn or lois@loisburtononline.com. I really enjoy your support. Your feedback means the world to me. So thank you very much for being here today.